Today in EVE Online, January 31st, 2020. This is the last day in January. Also, we should note some real-life stuff so that you can compare timelines is that Brexit kicks in today in a few hours. That would be midnight tonight for UK, 2 p.m. for Pacific in the US time zone. That's me. So literally a few hours. And it's also the impeachment trial looks like it's kind of wind down. They're about to vote on witnesses, which is going to be a very big day. So all this stuff is historic, and that's why we bring it up. And in EVE Online, there's, less turmoil than in real life. But let's look at the timer board, start there, go through .lan, go through some of the forums, maybe even some Reddit. Before we get to some articles, there's something I want to look at that Noisy Gamer wrote. It's a good article writer. He's a blogger. One of the old guys that, I shouldn't say old guys because that's rude. He's one of the good old bloggers is what I meant. One of the good old bloggers from 10 years ago that was writing back then. So not very many of them left. Also look at Tweet Fleet, and if we have a chance, we'll get into gender issues for EVE Online since that's been coming up. And I'm dying to tackle that topic, but everybody that I know and trust says, don't do it. There's no upside. Don't do it. And they're right. As Hilmar and the Pope took on gender recently, and we'll have a critique. See how that went. I didn't see it, but we'll find out. Good morning, everyone. Let's get on with the news. Okay, expect this not to change very much. We're looking at the timer board here, and as we can see, most of the timers are in Veil is Silent and Tenal. Again, this is because there's a war up there against Dead Coalition, which involves Ranger Regiment. That's one of the biggest alliances actually in that coalition, and they are losing a lot of space in Tenal, but this is mostly a cleanup effort as they have already announced that they're retreating into Branch. Veil of the Silent has, I think it's topsy-turvy because Veil is where there's a lot of different little alliances duking it out. So I think what you're seeing is some iHubs that have been put down that are being contested early on in their lifespan. So that's why we see Fraternity having some Veil of the Silent TCUs. Oh, these are TCUs. Let's go to iHubs. TCUs would be even easier to mess with. No iHubs coming out now, so this is all territorial claim units, TCUs. And this is just not that important as far as momentum goes. We can't make out a lot from this because this is generally a lot of cleanup work. TCUs are probably the last thing you take care of, and it's just a way of wiping the map clean of somebody's flag. So it's a cleanup. But the iHubs are the things that we look for, and those iHubs, there's none that are going to be in the next 2 days. So things have calmed down quite a bit. That's what we can denote from the information or lack thereof here. Moving on to recent statistics on .lan. We're starting out with the most violent regions. In nullsec, regions that have seen a lot of combat are Branch, and that is probably, again, the war in the north between PandaFam and Dead Coalition. And that is also, again, as we said, where Ranger Regiment has retreated. They're creating a new staging there, so they're probably seeing some fighting as they retreat. Right next to Branch, or near it, is Deckline, and that is another section where that's where I believe Darkness, the leader of Dead Coalition, lives. And so Branch and Deckline are the same conflict. You also see some Kalevala Expanse action, and that is, I believe that's VVV. Let's have a look. It's all part of the same stuff. It's definitely Horde's territory. Rekt is Horde. RAKTD. Rekt. That's the ticker for Pandemic Horde. That whole area belongs to them, and it's the whole area. I thought there might be some sharing of that area, but no. So anything that's happening in Kalevala Expanse is probably people going through Horde space looking for fights. As we explained yesterday, people will go, more experienced players or players that want some action will go where they can get guaranteed action, where there's a lot of people and the people aren't necessarily that experienced, which totally describes groups like Pandemic Horde, Karma Fleet, Brave Newbies, although Brave's been around a while now. So the idea is these guys are content rich for people who want to get some action. So anything in Kalevala Expanse essentially is people raiding Horde space to see what they can kill. And sometimes it might be skirmishing and practicing among themselves. Who knows? Rounding out number 4 as far as violent system is Venal. Again, that is part of the branch deckline and Venal war that's going on up there. All that northern stuff. That's why you're seeing it rate rather high. Then you have some more traditional areas like Delve and Catch. So that is in the south, along with Providence and Fountain, all part of the same empires, probably the Imperium or the Imperial Legacy, mostly legacy space. And so they are being contested because, again, people are looking for content. So they'll fly to them and see what they can do. Little standouts here that we're looking at are Oasa at number 5. Oasa saw 300 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. And that's important because we're going to see that grow as the Imperium takes on Fraternity's ratting space. Other than that, no real surprises here. The war is going to have a lot more casualties than usual, but you do have the usual players there rounding out the top 10 spots. In Empire region, the market hubs, or the market regions of the Forge and Lone Trek and Citadel are all at the top 3 as usual. And the faction war and low-sec areas of Black Rise and Essence and Cinque Zone, I would say, those are all faction war, Galente versus Caldari. So that's they've got about 900 destroyed ships split between them. Not split between them, sorry, each. So, and then you have Domain, Metropolis, and Hamatar. These are all trade hubs, trade hub routes. And that's where people are getting picked off and killed. And that's what you'd expect in Empire space. Low-sec is apparently still a bit dormant, with the exception of Black Rise there. Okay, looking at the most violent systems, let's have a look, see if there's anything important here. XW TAC in Branch. That's interesting. Again, that's Ranger Regiment and Northern Coalition duking it out. They call it Rio, but it's R10 TAC in Kalevala Expanse is the headquarters of Horde, so that belongs to that region. And as we've explained, people go there looking for fights. And I don't see any other outliers here. You're seeing systems that are center points of fights in Venal, Deckline, Tribute, more Venal and Branch. And this is, again, the Northern Conflict. You see a standout here in I6 TAC in Cache. And that is very small. It's just a 15-person roam that might have been just a couple of locals fighting it out. Systems in the last 24 hours. Branch, Deckline, Kalevala. So WTAC 4 in Branch. Yeah, these are fights again for Northern Conflict. I want to go back for a second. That XW TAC, that is 165 ships in the last 3 hours. So there may be some activity up there happening now or just recently ended. Most violent systems in low-sec. Topping the list in low-sec in the last 3 hours. 50 ships destroyed in Tama, Onata and Citadel. And Kanaka. Kanaka is also in Black Rise. That's a famous system. I believe there was a Keepstar there that was destroyed. It belonged to Waffles. That was a while ago. So it is a place where people, there is an ecosystem around Kanaka. All that is about 20, 25 ships destroyed, except in Tama where there's double that. There's about 50. So that is all low-sec and all very typical for this time. In the last 24 hours, you have the same systems because these are usually active systems. And so 250 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours in Tama, 190 in Kanaka, and 104 in Oanan. Oanan is where I had my Keepstar. It was also a low-sec Keepstar on the border of null-sec. And that Keepstar that I owned was brought down under threat of destruction by the Imperium. I negotiated being able to have that one spared. I packaged it up and sold it to Test, and Test put it up as the Keepstar in Perimeter. So if you ever wondered where the Onin Keepstar went, it's the Perimeter Keepstar. And that one, that system itself had 100 ships destroyed in the last 24 hours. And then again, that could be, that's not it's not usually that high, but it's not surprising either. Old Man Star, probably a gate camp, comes in at number 6 with 78 kills in the last 24 hours. And that is probably gate camps, because Old Man Star goes into low sec, and Old Man Star is an entrance system for Galente faction war space. So that's probably what's happening there. Looking at high sec, let's see if it's the traders getting killed again. The most violent systems in high sec, of course, topping the list is Jita in the last 3 hours of 50 ships destroyed. Think about that. There are 50 ships destroyed in Jita, which is high sec, secure space. And in Tama, low sec space, there's 52 ships destroyed. So 47 to 52. It is almost as dangerous to be in Jita as it is to be in Tama. That is a bit absurd. But there it is. So low sec space, some of the hottest low sec space where people go to fight is almost equivalent to Jita as far as destruction goes. The nature of it's different, of course, but yeah, we should mention, and we will mention, that these numbers are artificially low for the last 24 hours because we've entered a chaos era of instability, and by that I mean server instability over the last few days. It's particularly bad yesterday. So these numbers are all lower than they should be. And the server stability is something that is on everybody's mind, and that is what CCP is working on now. So it is important to realize that. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Almost finished here. So the most violent systems in the last 24 hours. Well, this is interesting here. Uitra in the Forge had about 500 ships destroyed. And this is telling as well. You had 438 ships destroyed. 4 of the pods were destroyed. So I have to look into Uitra. It may become maybe like a beginner system. I'm not sure, but when you see that few pods destroyed, these are escape pods from the ships, there is something there that is not an actual fight. There's a couple reasons for that. One is in Empire space, you take a pretty good standings hit if you destroy a pod. So generally people don't want to destroy pods because they don't want that added heat. But a lot of times pirates don't care about that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think it might be either a friendly fight or new players losing their ships to NPCs, and that might be a new system. We'll have to see about that. I gotta get more acquainted with what the new player systems are these days. Have I done NPC? Hello, drone. Have you done NPC killed yet? Interesting in the high sec mission hub numbers. Hey, we'll check that out, and I'll show you how to do it too. So if we want to go to, how do we do this for everywhere? I don't know if there is an everywhere. I know if you go into a system, let's do NPC kills. There's got to be a way to do this. I'm blanking on it. You have a list of different filters you can put on any regional map. And one of those is NPCs killed in 24 hours. You also have NPC kills that are basically last 3 hours. Then you have NPC kills in the last 24 hours if you want a longer range look. And then what's interesting here is NPC delta. If you're a hunter, delta is it going up or is it going down? So that tells you what ratting spots are coming in at that time. So if I log in and I do the delta and I can see that this area here is starting to get hotter, I know those guys just started. So then I can make my way over there and try to destroy them. So that's what the delta is for. I'll show you what that looks like. So this down here, QO TAC in Providence, is somebody just, I guess that's green, which means it's going cooler. No, it's going hotter. And these guys are cooling off. You can tell by the negative numbers. So negative 39 and negative 68. That means that there are less kills in the last few minutes, which means people left. They're no longer ratting in that area. So I don't want to go there because people are leaving that area. But these green areas with the plus 126 and the plus 20, I know that those are coming online. People are starting to kill things more rapidly right now than they were a few hours ago. And so that's where I go because that's probably where the freshest players are that are going to be around the longest. So that's what delta is. But NPC kills, let's look at that. Let's do 24 hours. Yeah, that system that we were talking about, we're using Providence as an example, has 3,000. That's, again, QO TAC. That has 3,000 kills in the last 24 hours. So that is a ratting spot. I want to keep my eye on that if I want to go hunting there. Or if I want to rat too, I might look at that area and say, what's going on there? Why is it so lucrative? Why are people ratting there? The biggest spot is here. That's hard to read, but I think it's like 5,000 NPCs destroyed. So that must be some good, it could be a good local spot. It could be good missioning. I'm not sure. Okay, so how do I do this for the whole, let's see if I could do it for everything. I forgot, or it's not possible to look at all ratting, except maybe if I go to, at least in a filtered way like that. I'm not sure that's how you do it. But I can go into most violent systems. It's down here, most violent systems and wormholes, most active systems. Okay, well this is where I should be looking, and it's just a fixed chart, so I can't go any deeper than the top 10. I don't see a link to go any deeper than top 10. So if you're looking at NPCs, we'll do the last 3 hours. Not really important because we're not going hunting or anything. But a lot of Cobalt Edge, and that's probably going to be reflected in the 24-hour NPC kills. So yeah, Cobalt Edge, Owasso, those are near each other, and so is Paragon Falls. These are all drone regions. I'm not sure exactly who owns these. Let's go ahead and look. I know Owasso is owned by Fraternity. Let me switch this back from NPCs to Sovereignty. And Fraternity is FRT here. They're all the brown. And you can tell if you're a player that's been around a while, you can tell what the good ratting spots are because they're a little more secure. Now that is still true. It's less true today than it used to be for different travel reasons. But you see this little circle here on the right. The people who own that's prime. That's a prime spot because it's kind of just one way in. Again, wormholes have made this a lot less than it used to be. But the point is that they're going to take the prime spots for themselves. So these are Fraternity are clearly the owners of this ratting area, and then they will go ahead and rent out or give out ratting areas to other people that are their allies or people who pay them, renters. So Owasso is one of the bigger. With one of the bigger places to NPC rat right now. It's like 25,000 NPCs have been killed there. In JM0, it's 28,000 NPCs that have been killed. And then the top spot belongs to QTAC V in Cobalt Edge, and that's 30,000. So let's look at Paragon Falls, where they have 28,000 NPCs destroyed in the last 24, and that is, again, Fraternity, now in yellow. You see in green here, Wrecked, that is Horde. And so that's the majority of them. So it's Fraternity on the top two. Sorry, the number 2 spot, number 3 spot. And we'll go back one more time to Cobalt Edge. And Cobalt Edge is in the top spot with about 30,000 NPC kills. And that is Horde. And VVV or Triple V, which is a Chinese alliance. and MSN. MSN and VVV are considered very closely related. They would be like NCPL relationship, and they're essentially twin sisters. They live near each other, and this is all Cobalt Edge, which was that the top spot? Yeah, top spot goes to Horde and their Chinese neighbors, and then the second and third spot all go to Fraternity, and then you have Delve at the number 4 spot with 23,000, not far behind. Delve is the Imperium's headquarters. Okay, so that's what's been going on. Let's go have a look at, we'll skip Reddit and the forums for now. I have a feeling, yep, DDoS, people are concerned about all that kind of thing. And let's look at Twitter, because I think that's where we'll also find, let's go to latest. This is the big deal right now, and that is disconnects. What do you guys in here? Let me just introduce some names real quick. We have Caleb with us. We have Lichgrave, Roliat, and Victor. You guys will know their voices from, they've been here many times before. What do you guys know about the server stability?
It's non-existent.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get authenticated in the last couple minutes because it disconnected me.
So we're still down at the moment.
Yeah, I had login problems when I tried to log in a few hours ago. So it's still a shit show.
How long has it been that way?
A few weeks, about a little over a week now, maybe close to a week.
Close to a week. I think it's day 5. At least posted on Twitter. It was day 4 yesterday or so, I think, if I remember right.
Well, what can you guys tell me about this? I'm not. I'm not sure there's anything to say. Like,
put on your tinfoil hat. I think it's the Remainers actually DDoSing the London server.
I had the same thought, but
the Remainers.
Yeah, the Brexit thing.
Oh,
it's Remainers attacking the London server. So basically, a political statement.
Yeah.
No, I honestly don't know what the fuck is going on. I'm very puzzled at why it's getting attacked now. Who's doing it and for what reason?
Hi, McLeod.
hey,
Are you a Remainer and attacking the Eve server with DDoS attacks?
you know, I heard what Caleb was saying. I had to jump in.
Oh,
Of course you did.
I shall provide a different theory for you. Have you heard about the terribleness that has been going on with Warcraft 3? Because I'm kind of feeling that there might be like a group of people in the MMO scene that might want to be maybe preventing people from playing their direct competitors' products. While they themselves are having a lot of issues as well. So, you know, there's a different theory for you.
in other words, if they can't have their servers up, they're going to take everybody else's down with them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mutually assured destruction.
I think the concept's a bit different than mutually assured destruction, but
to a degree,
that is like, you know, tripping in a race and then reaching out and tripping everybody else. But that's a good theory. It's as good as Remainers, I think.
Played yourself.
What if it's a false flag? What if it's actually CCP self-harm?
Self-harming. Nothing to laugh at. Self-harming is a serious thing.
You say like they didn't turn on the power to the server stack that has the DDoS prevention system? They just haven't realized this yet?
Oh, so you're just going with the easy, incompetent one.
I mean, we've heard of CCP accidentally tripping on a power lead, and you know that being the reason why the server suddenly, disconnected and stuff.
This is more than just CCP, though. Escape from Tarkov, Disney Plus. There have been multiple different games that have noted this kind of thing.
I'm just saying stuff like this can happen.
Yeah.
I'm just really opposed to this digital terrorism without actual anyone taking credit for it.
No,
right?
no
I don't
demands.
think it's really annoying, right? This is also why in real life I miss the old days, right? The late 80s and stuff when there was actual terrorists around and it was not just nutcases in white vans trying to run over people in the streets. Like, where are things like Rode Armee Fraktion and Bader Meinhof and the old school real agenda-based terrorism? This is what I'm missing. If you do something effectively like a DDoS like this, at least come out and say that you are the one doing it and tell us why.
Hey, bro, it's not all over. Palestinian Islamic Jihad's still around. I mean, I did this for a living for 20 years for a reason.
Oh, yeah, true. There is still some. It's just getting more and more focused on the stuff that I would not classify as proper terrorism. Because if you don't have an agenda, if you don't share it, and if you're not a group and an organization, it really doesn't make sense, right? If this was one guy doing it, it would not really be a goal-oriented attack, right?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of theories out there. I mean, I've heard everything from Bitcoin miners to RMTers to, oh yeah, I had to stave off about 2 hours of, oh, it's goons again yesterday. That was fun.
Oh yeah,
Are you kidding me?
That brings on the whole topic of goons is coming back.
So Estelle writes here, seems, again, almost 20K distributed attacks going on those. Okay, so DDoS attacks we're in what, day 4, somebody said? And we don't know why. There was something about the market on CC that they were saying they were playing whack-a-mole with some of the bugs on CC. So I'm assuming that the market, they're in the test server trying to fix the market. Is that a clue to anything?
That's just because that usually suffers a lot from things like DDoS attacks, right? It pretty much makes it impossible to do anything.
Yeah, but I wonder if that's where one of the problems is they're trying to fix. And then somebody mentioned there was a rollback, so that means they're basically going back to a previous version of EVE Online to try to get something that's salvageable for the moment.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the market is slightly sensitive to things like DDoS because you can actually risk losing transactions that aren't actually completed, and no one is actually getting any of the stuff that's supposed to conclude in the transaction. So it's sensitive for the stability of the database in general, right?
Yeah. Okay, so Droneberg here, who gives a lot of good information in this chat, or at least shares it. I'm not sure this is true, but I'll read it anyway. From what I can gather, it's a group of botters who were banned 2 weeks ago and are now doing DDoS attacks on the game server and chat server IPs and scripted login spam. That's a very detailed answer. Interesting. I don't know about the banned users 2 weeks ago. They didn't register on my radar, but then again, I don't look for it. We'll have to ask Noisy Gamer if that's what happened. Hello, Killer B. You got a new icon, huh? New suit. All right, reading more chat here.
Yeah, it's because of it's more like an Alliance meme. It's not actually.
Oh, I see.
Because yesterday during our Alliance meeting, Vince called us Squirtles, the Pokemon, because we were squirting fire at Sword Dragon's Flame or whatever. Something like he said, and said if the Alliance are Squirtles and I'm Blastoise. So apparently I'm the Alliance mascot now, so I had to change my profile picture.
I like it.
Blastoise with sunglasses. No, I mean, everything above that is not real anyways. The new weird GX Pokemon don't count.
Do you have any idea what these DDoS attacks are all about, Killer B? Any idea?
No, I don't really care, to be honest. It's probably out of CCP's hand, and it sucks, obviously, because for us, for example, we had a timer today at 1400 EVE time, and both sides of the fight had very big disconnecting issues. We still managed to win the fight, and we killed the 40s that we wanted to kill, so that's good. But yeah, it was kind of a shit show. It's a bit. I don't want to call it embarrassing because I don't think CCP can do much about it. Maybe they should be able to. I have no idea how this kind of stuff works. But as far as I know, there's something like DDoS protection out there that you can buy, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they don't just buy that. Probably too cheap to do that or some shit. I don't know.
I wonder. Is this affecting your guys' plans in the north during the war here? Because everybody's suffering it. Did you guys set up I think you guys put up a new keep star, right?
We dropped one in NCG, yes. I don't want to call this guy's name out, right? But the guy from INN poked me and was like, hey, I'm writing a piece about the keep star team. Any chance I can get a comment? So I asked him, what kind of information are you looking for, right? And he said, just tell me something like we have dropped a keep star for ... And I was like, what kind of question is that? what do people drop a keep star for? I don't know, man. Like, for tons of reasons. You want me to write you half a page or one sentence or like way to not ask good questions. That's not a good journalist right there.
Oh. Well, don't say who it was. We don't want to embarrass anyone.
Dude, we're goons. We're bad at everything. Come on. What's up, Killer? How you been?
Killed sort of. I've been good, by the way. The fort we just killed was actually pretty nice because it was one of the goon forts that they had dropped to stage out of, or at least put some of their caps into.
Oh, that's right.
For some reason somebody made a mistake. I guess I don't know if GSOL is responsible for this. I'm sure that if they are, or if they aren't, that Tutsi is gonna come out of his bunker and start yelling at me on Twitter or somewhere.
You say Tutsi?
But basically, somebody let the fort drop into low power, and we found that, and we reinforced it on 2 days ago, and we killed it today because it wasn't low power. They had already staged like 200, 300 threats or something like that into that fort.
Oh.
So yesterday they had to move them out. It was kind of funny.
So you guys found a low power fortizar and you were able to take advantage of it?
2 actually.
2? Somebody's not paying the fuel bills or turning them on.
Yeah, I can't believe, like, I don't know who's responsible for the logistics of that, like, of this kind of SIG, like, because it's not like SV, right? This is more like a SIG where the entire alliance is involved. It's obviously not mandatory to join it, but most PvPers are going to join it. They have like 400, 500 people in that SIG at the moment, which is pretty big.
Wow.
So yeah, there was obviously somebody made a mistake. Those forts went into low power, we reinforced them. And today one came out and we killed them. I think another one's coming out tomorrow and we're going to kill that too. And then, we'll go from there.
All right. So these are the reinforcements that are supposed to help Dead Coalition. They're from the south in the Imperium. So 2 of their fortizars are taken off the game plan. They must have more than that, though.
I'm not sure if they have more forts themselves, but they can obviously just stage out of a GOTG fort for now and then drop their own once they're up here. Shouldn't be a problem.
That's a pretty good setback. That's kind of funny. So you guys are kind of on a roll.
We'll see how things look when goons arrive with their SIG. I think they're going to have very good numbers in the first couple of days. Although I'm pretty confident in our ability to beat them because the doctrines that they chose, and I know these are experimental doctrines as well. I know that they said that, obviously they were in Typhoons and they're also bringing heavy missile sacrileges or ham sacrileges with assault missiles or something, which are both very weird doctrines. Obviously, the only way to really test doctrines is by trying them out. You can't really try doctrines all that much on Sissy because you don't really get the kind of environment that you have in a real fight on TQ. So I understand why they do that. Like I said on a previous show as well, I find Typhoons just being incredibly funny because there's like, in my history of being in FC and EVE, I think there was like 10 attempts of making Typhoons work and they all went to shit. So I'm just kind of waiting if this is finally the one where it works.
See if they get it right on the 11th attempt.
But I don't think so.
By the way, hams are heavy assault missiles. Those are short-range missiles as opposed to heavy missiles, which are long-range missiles.
Yeah, exactly. They're bringing those sacrileges and they're bringing those foons, and both those fleet comms I feel pretty comfortable we can beat. And saying that, obviously, it involves some factors that I don't know if all of our FCs can pull them off. So I'm not saying that they're not going to have success with them at all. I just think that if they fight one of our more competent FCs like Nidusbar himself, for example, I don't think those fleet comms will work against him. Obviously, some other FCs might not be able to pull off what they need to pull off to make them useless, basically. So we'll see how it goes.
We're going to have
USTZ.
fun and die, Killa. That's
You're real quiet. Hold on, let me grab you here.
USTZ is going to be the very interesting time zone, I think, when goons come up here, because USTZ was a very dominant time zone of ours, and obviously Asher, who's said to be very active during this deployment of the SIG, is in USTZ. So if Asher takes the reins in USTZ and starts rolling out some really big fleets in USTZ, I think there's going to be a lot of big fleets going down in US time zone in the north soon, and then we'll see how things go in EU. But I feel pretty in EUTZ. I feel pretty comfortable. We can beat them. In US and AUTZ, we're going to have to see how their FCs play it and our FCs play it. It'll be interesting to watch.
Good. We're going to see some action up there. It has.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so we have a big group in here now. Throw out some questions that everybody can participate in. Let's see. Noisy Gamer put out, and I don't know if this will go anywhere, but Noisy Gamer, good blogger, check it out. It's nosygamer.blogspot.com. A few days ago, actually, I missed this one, so I'm going back for it. On the 20th, when the MER came out, that's the monthly economic report, he wrote up a quick little piece with new graphs that he was showing off, and he couldn't fit Delve on the graph because it was such an outlier. But his conclusion is generally this, and I thought this was actually very important. In June, before Hurricane Hilmar, that's what he calls the chaos era, came through New Eden, the residents of Delve mined 14.8 trillions worth of ore and collected 11 trillion ISK from killing NPCs. Those are very big paydays, by the way. Quoting him again, in December, those numbers declined to 3.8 trillion ISK and 4.3 trillion ISK, respectively. The result was a declining of mining value of 11 trillion ISK and 6.9 trillion in bounties. That's a big hit during the chaos era. So he goes on to say, and this is the conclusion, I know that the Imperium in general, the Goon Swarm in particular, like to say that any nerf will hurt smaller groups worse than they'll hurt the resources. Sorry, let me read that again. Will hurt smaller groups worse as they, the larger groups, have the resources to handle any change better than the little guys. But the raw numbers, I have to say, in raw numbers, I have to say the Imperium was the group hit worst by the changes introduced by the Chaos era. Holy open
I'm going to go
mics.
soon, so I'm just going to say something about this right now, and I'm going to leave. A lot of those numbers that dropped on the Imperium side were basically by people that just stopped logging in. So the biggest nerf was hit basically by CCP because they lost players over that stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit iffy. Like I don't think you can generalize that all the nerfs goons can handle better than the smaller people, right? Because for example, if they would introduce something like where when you mine, Gary, whatever your name is, you hot micing, GereRobert or something.
Oh, I just muted him though.
Okay. Well, no, he's not muted. He's hot king. Okay.
Okay.
There you go. So basically, obviously, so if you were to introduce a change where if you mine, you can only mine a certain amount of belts per day in a system, right? That wouldn't affect smaller groups because if you sit there with your 5 friends and you can basically be sustained by a single system for one day, right? But if you go around belt by belt with 20, 30 raw cools, then that change is going to hit you harder. I understand Goon's standpoint as well, where they say they can compensate better for whatever change CCP throws at them because they have a much larger infrastructure and they have a lot more resources to sort of balance it out. But just plain and simply saying smaller groups are always going to get hit worse by any sort of change you can make to the game than the larger groups is just not true. It depends on the kind of change. And I think the blackout, again, was just a bad thing overall to the game because a lot of people just couldn't be bothered logging in. And some people lost so much faith in the game that they still haven't returned. And it's definitely up to the alliances to work for the people to return, which is also, I think, a reason why goons are doing this deployment that they're doing right now, because it gets the members to log back in. Those people that are interested in PvP, they're going to come back. They'll be like, oh, finally, there's some kind of campaign going down. We're going somewhere. We're going to shoot some stuff. So they're going to come back. I think it's also part of the reason why goons are doing this deployment.
Yeah, I really like what's going on.
Reactivates their alliance.
I really like what's going on in the north because it doesn't feel fake at all. I mean, this is life or death for Sword Dragon's coalition. So it feels like things are actually at stake, and people have real motivation to make him feel some pain because they're really angry about the way he participated in the tribute, the glassing of tribute. So this feels real, and that makes it really the stakes higher to some degree.
Yeah, it's very real for GOTG or for that coalition for sure, and it's really not that real for anyone else. Because even obviously it would suck for our reputation or our image if we would now suddenly lose all the ground we've made. It would blow, right? But at the end of the day, we're not really going to lose anything of value, right? We're not planning to invest anything into the region of Tine. We're just kind of doing what Goons did in Tribute and Vale, which is going there, clearing the region more or less. Focusing on IOPS at the moment, and we'll probably just leave it alone. You never know. Maybe VVV and MSN are going to move in and make those regions their home. There's no fleshed out plans there yet, but could be possible, I guess.
But at the minimum, you're going to make them feel some pain.
Yeah, exactly. So for GOTG, it's very real because they actually stand to lose their home space here, or at least a big portion of their space. If we manage to push them out of branch, it's definitely a bad spot for them. But for Goons, this is not really that real at all because Goons, they're just going to come here for some PvP content. Obviously, wouldn't be the best thing in the world if they would lose GOTG as an ally to work with, or if their ally would be significantly weakened. But then again, I don't know. They need it. I don't think they need it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And for test, if they actually get involved again, obviously it's also just content. So it's definitely very real for one side of the content, and then it's kind of less real for the other sides, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's good. We'll see how that shapes up. I want to push back a little bit on your analysis of Blackout. You and I have publicly disagreed on this. I said it was not long enough. You said it was too long. You actually fall in line with what Hilmar said, that they should have cut it off at about 45 days, but they went to about 66 days of Blackout. And that was too long. They got the information they needed at about 45 days, which is what you said. So you and Hilmar are on the same page on that. I think there was more time needed for mutations to see how people would have adapted and who would have stuck around. But the fact that they went beyond 45 days of Blackout put them right in a terrible spot because at about day 50, 5 days after they would have stopped Blackout, I think it was about day 50, WoW Classic came out. So you had an alternative to go and play this game that you maybe didn't get in on at the beginning, so you could go back and reminisce with friends, either reminisce with friends and do WoW like you used to, or you could check out stuff and do bosses that you couldn't because you came in after those bosses were there. Whatever the case, a lot of people had options at that time. So that might have actually had a lot to do with people taking off. And I know that some people are still playing WoW and still doing dungeons and doing that classic stuff.
Skill Yourself, obviously not all of Skill Yourself, right? But the core, the leaders of Skill Yourself and the important people within Skill Yourself, they all quit EVE and went to play Classic WoW, and they're still playing it. I'm still on their Discord in their guild because I wanted to play with them. I ended up not having the time to play with them, but they're still playing that, and they still refuse to go back to EVE, right? So.
But that's not because of Blackout, is it? That's because
it was before that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the guys from Peak, right? I can't think of his name right now. Rancor Vile, right? Good FC guys that made things happen. Same thing with Skill UFCs, and those guys took off because they don't like this big empire, get as many people into a system as you can kind of warfare. So that's why they've stayed away. And I think recently you've also seen some people. You saw Snuff finally die, and it's not because they were defeated. It's because they were essentially that play style just really hasn't been addressed. They've been, I think, trying to address it with some of these changes that are coming through with Fight or Flight expansion that just came out. But I don't know if that confidence is built back up that there's a middle game yet. Maybe soon, but I don't know.
Can I just trigger one and say that this is very much related to the relationship analogy that we used to use a while back, right? If you are in a relationship and for some reason you're not getting any, and suddenly you start looking for something else, you're not going to go back, right? That's the whole problem with the blackout. If you left Eve during the blackout to go and play something else, you're not necessarily likely to come back.
I think those guys have come back. The guys that left during
Some of them,
blackout,
but many didn't.
I don't know. The guys, I mean, because the ratting numbers and the let's call it the harvesting numbers, I think those are 80% of what they were before. So I think those guys did trickle back into the game. Maybe. I don't know. Sure, there's a 10, 20% that maybe didn't come back. But we're talking about the guys that actually create things in the game.
But this is about carrying capacity, and you don't necessarily know if it's the same people, because the same production values are going to come out because you don't need that many people to actually do the work to get those numbers.
Well, what I'm saying is we're going to call them content creators, although I kind of hate that elitist term. Sorry, Killer B. But these are guys that put fleets together, go out and do stuff, right? We're missing a whole chunk of those guys that took off. And they all said it was for the same reason. They didn't like the way the game was being developed, where the big numbers kind of outweigh anything else. There's nothing else that's viable. You just need to get and grow your alliance to be this huge alliance. So that's
now you're contradicting yourself.
No, that's what they said. That's not what I'm saying, but that's what they said.
Those guys would not show up on the metrics if they came back, right? The content creators that are doing destruction are not going to show up on the creation numbers.
Well, but I think they're the engine that creates the need for creation too, right? Without them, there's going to be a sad.
They're not the crabbers. They are the content created by definition, right?
Right.
So they're not going to show up on the mining numbers.
Well, no, but I think the mining numbers have recuperated to a large degree. So the guys that left because blackout was oppressive and they couldn't mine, those guys have largely come back. Am I wrong about
crabs, that? But the actual content creators, the people that are not showing up on those numbers, are not coming back.
Exactly. So we agree on that. And so what I'm
you just made it sound as if there was no people that hadn't come back.
Oh no. I'm saying the key people, the ones that you want in the game, the let's just say it, GigX-like FCs that made things happen, are staying away from the game for different reasons. And I think they, I don't know if Blackout was too late for them, or if they just, or because Blackout, there's a lot of mid-level guys that have taken off. I think like Fweddit, right? Fweddit took off basically because Blackout was revoked. And so I'm not making a case for Blackout. We're past that point. But it is interesting to look back at the analysis and see that Blackout did hurt the Imperium worse than anybody else, at least because they were the biggest, so they're probably going to get hurt the most. So they're not necessarily able to adapt better. And even the stuff that came out at eVegas from Larrikin saying like the Blackout was actually hurting the smaller independent guys more didn't seem 100% right. And I know the CCP has their statistics, and I will believe their statistics, but I don't think it didn't hurt the big empires as badly as it hurt the smaller ones. And I think those statistics kind of show some of that. So that's why we brought all that up. But anyway, let's move on. That's an old fight.
It's back to what Killer was just talking about, right? In the design of Blackout, it would hit anyone that is trying to do any type of empire building on any scale. It wouldn't hurt anyone that are not doing empire building. But the reason that it hit the goons most is because that's the biggest empire building entity in the game, right? So there's a difference of what type of play style that this nerfs. And this goes back to the whole problem with that argument that Killer was trying to make, that he kind of left out, is that this is about CCP not being responsible for their own product, right? That they don't seem to realize that you need to think 3, 4, 5 steps out. And you also need to consider what type of changes are you rolling out while other things are happening in the overall game industry. You don't do some experiment like Blackout just when all your competitors are coming out with new content that can pull people away. It's just dumb. And it seems like timing is always an issue for CCP. They don't think out of the box.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. You can have the last word on it. We'll pick it up another day. I want to point to another Nyx just got killed here. It looks like it's taken out by Fraternity. Am I right? Yes, Fraternity, right? And this was killed in Branch. So I don't know, any efforts to be super carrier ratting in Branch, or I don't know if this guy was doing that. It looks like it may have been. Yeah, this looks like NPC ratting. So they're going to have a hard time harvesting in peace up there in Branch. It's going to be interesting to see how things settle out. And it looks like it's going to be a real war coming soon. And growing soon now that Goonswarm is really dedicated to getting up there. Although they lost their 2 staging Fortizars right away, which is what Killer B was saying. There's one last topic I wanted to hit. Let's see if I have... Let me get those links from you. Oh, where's the link to that article, though? Well, this is Max Singularity's... I don't know if I can show... I can't show somebody else's Twitch. That's against the rules or something. I don't know. Twitch has some rules. Here it is. Sindel Pelion. You guys might remember her as personality, especially in Twitter for EVE Online. And she wrote songs and performed them. Many songs, actually. And she was a big fan favorite for EVE Online for probably many years, but mostly in 2012, 2014 era. And she says, this Girls Play Eve has me twisted. And I think Girls Play Eve is a stream that the Max Singularity, the Pope, did. And I don't know when it was, maybe a few days ago. And you can catch that on his channel. And I will put that in Twitch, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to stream somebody else and talk about them. That's against the rules. In any case, she writes, I'm an advocate and ally for sure, but I'm old guard. No shit, we play Eve. I did things I never thought you could do in the game. I'm proud of what we did, and I never once thought we should get credit because of our gender. It's insulting.
I think the even more insulting part is that it assumes that feminine behavior is more passive and thus less competitive. So it's basically saying that EVE players that are female or choose female avatars are worse at playing EVE.
Yeah, it almost typecast somebody from the get-go.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was a complete mansplaining shit show.
We're doing this ass backwards. What are we talking about?
Well, there was a few things. There was a soft dev blog about players and player behavior coming out, and then there was that article that's linked by Hilma, which was about. It was actually quite interesting because it was about what EVE is as a game and what it means and why it's really deep and has all these sociological aspects. But then they focused on the gender thing, and then the Pope had that show or the stream that was talking about women in EVE, the controversial topic that you've been avoiding for almost 4 years, right? So it just started snowballing into the gender topic, and it was horrible because it was, first of all, the thing that was referenced in that article was basically bullshit sociology science, right? It was really, really bad. And the second was kind of the whole conclusion and the attitude towards the female players of EVE. So it was just bound to explode. And you can see it on the type of people that actually comment on it and all the face palming and, well, what I call the famous females in EVE pretty much face disking like crazy, going, what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay. So but the topic was what was the topic though? How did they address the topic? Because that's the article, but how did the show that Max Singularity was doing address the topic?
Well, okay. The point is that if you want to touch on this topic, you have to have a certain attitude that is definitely not Max's strong side, right? He goes straight to it's the stumbling thing that you also do, that you start out with good intentions when you talk about this topic, and then you end up with foot and mouth, right? It's a dangerous topic, right? And we've had this discussion many times when we talked in voice and not on actual stream, right? So going into the topic of gender, and usually it's this whole old white men talking about females. It resembles real life politics of America so much, right? It's like, Jesus Christ, could you at least have one representative of the females, and at least have some variety in play styles, right? You can't cherry pick like one or two examples and then make your entire case based on that. It's just horrible.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could get into this topic, but I just feel
Eve's
like
horrible, right? Eve is
no
horrible
good
when
can
it
come
comes
from
to
it.
talking about this, right? Because we have this really strange mix of personality types in Eve, and the females that actually do play Eve are not necessarily a good representation of average females, right? They are just as weird as the males, right? This game
Yes.
attracts a very special type of personality. Aspie-like personality types that like spreadsheets or likes weird, deep backstabbing games, and it's just a totally different player base than most other games. I know that's changed a lot over the last 5-10 years maybe, but at least at the core, it's a very special type. It's also why, if you look at some of the females, they are usually very entrepreneurial or very much higher up in organizational stuff in real life, or has they're not your average kind of female, right? Even if you talk about people like Minxie or Grey Gal or Lady Scarlet or Rivra or Mirana.
Brilari.
Yeah, it's just, it's not your average female. They are just as weird as the males of this game. And when you talk about the more aggressive ones like Hellcat players, and it's like what's that, rollerblading stuff in
Roller derby.
Yeah, roller derby. That's the type of females that would tend to play a game like Eve. They're really nerdy, just like the guys, and they will have massive toy collections and read comic books, and just, they're not average. Let's just admit it. And making a show that then argues gender and gender issues from real life averaging, it's just wrong, because that's not who plays Eve.
I think there's kind of a danger that happens too when anybody tries to speak on these kind of issues. It's like walking on razor blades, because in trying to, I've seen so many times where people try to highlight women in gaming and end up reducing them to what I can only describe as a pathetic trope. It's like, oh, you don't fit this exact mold that we have, our preconceived notions. Oh, you're not a real girl gamer, stuff like that. My wife gets that all the time, drives me nuts.
Roller derby was fake, I think. I don't know. If you guys don't know this, it was something that was in the 70s, right? Or early 80s. And it's basically
WWE.
What's that?
It's still a big thing, and it's definitely not fake.
Is it? No,
it's bloody violent and horrible.
Yeah. This is funny, but it came out at a time when roller skates was a big deal. Not skateboarding, but roller skates in the 70s, and going around this ring, and then basically being race cars and knocking each other off. It's kind of a...
Vice News did a thing on this, I think, last year. And I was watching some of it out of Texas, and there was this poor, 22-year-old college student that just loved doing it. Next thing I know, turn away from the TV for a moment, look back, she's got a shattered kneecap.
Ooh, that's not good. Yeah, they hit the rails pretty hard. Oh, there's... All right, they're going to fight. Oh, good, the ref is stopping it. Anyway, so that's what it is, though. I mean, people watch car racing for excitement and car crashes, and People watch this stuff for that sort of thing. But you're saying, and I'll take away this distracting video, but you're saying that basically women in EVE are just as nerdy as the guys. They shouldn't be separated out for gender.
Yeah, pretty much. And the point is, there's also the generational thing, right? That you could say that the younger crowd is a little bit less polarized than the older ones. But my argument stands. EVE attracts a very special type of player. And that's true for males, females, or whatever, because we also have a strange overrepresentation of queer, gay, and transsexuals in EVE, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what I find interesting.
Exactly, and this is why I argued that the sociology study that dude was doing was crap, right? Because you can actually do some really interesting sociology studies in EVE, but not that, right? It's the same with the fact that we have so many veterans, like people with PTSD and stuff like that. And it's like, why are we not focusing on these things? Because that would be interesting. What is it that EVE does that helps these people get through their personal problems, right? It's just, that would be interesting. But focusing on the real world normal gender issue is just dumb.
I use it as a way to civilianize myself personally.
Civilianize myself.
Yeah, I use it as a way to in touch over the years. I've been playing for a long time, and gaming was a great outlet. You know, when you're sitting there on a military post going deployment to deployment, it's a great way to keep in touch with the civilian world that, frankly, a lot of us lose track of.
Yeah. Now, I put this picture up not because I want to show somebody's vision of a sexy pilot, right? But I think this is Naiden who made this, probably. He's a really good artist.
And this is another great example.
But he used to have pinups.
Naiden in real life is the most macho guy you can ever meet, right? He does MMA fighting, and he's very blunt and brutish in appearance, right? But great then dude. The soft side is this really amazing artist that has this whole feminized thing in all his art, right? He's really he's a complicated personality, and this is what I think is very true in many EVE players. They're very complex.
Well, anyway, we can't possibly take this topic on today, but I like this topic. I've always wanted to do a show on this, but I think that the gender issue is not. I don't really care. I mean, what I care about is just the interesting part that there is not a significant amount of women that play EVE Online. I'll say females, because it might be girls, it might be women. Less than 4% play EVE Online. Something's up there. I think something's up there, and I don't know what that is, because that's not the case for even Call of Duty, where you have all female teams that are freaking great at the game, and their percentage is somewhere in the 30% or 40%. EVE Online has less than 4%. That is not significant scientifically. So
exactly,
EVE is like Rush, the band Rush. Only guys listen to Rush for some weird reason. I could be wrong, but later on, I think Rush picked up more female fans. But EVE just doesn't seem to attract, or doesn't offer them, or whatever your X reason is. There is an insignificant amount of women that play EVE Online.
But it's also the theme of the game, right? The sci-fi theme historically has not been extremely attractive to females until like later in time, right? It's only like 10 years ago that females started being very passionate about sci-fi stuff as well. It used to be a very male-dominated thing, like pen and paper. But this has changed, right? And it's just, CCP has kind of lost the plot on figuring out how to market for that. They had an amazing opportunity when they still had White Wolf and World of Darkness, right? That would have brought in a ton of females to the EVE universe if they had actually utilized that in an effective way. But they kind of didn't get around to do that.
My female friend has been playing EVE since it started. And I have another female friend who plays EVE, and she was an ex-Air Force pilot.
Yeah, we're not talking about whether there are women in EVE. We're talking about the fact that statistically,
there's a low percentage of them. Yeah, I understand.
Extremely low.
But can I tell you that there's a lot of the simple ganking that goes on in the high sec area with ships crashing into other ships and pushing them off the gates. And I've showed my sister. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, we're gate camping." She said, "There's nothing in that. You're just sitting there." And I said, "But this is part of the game." She said, "I'm not playing that. That's boring." So until Eve realizes that being a bad driver, smashing into a guy to shove him off a gate, women won't play this game because it's got to be fast moving and then the fight takes place. But if a guy sits there in high sec where they come in and they're learning nothing because they're sitting there going, "There's nothing in this game."
That is hilarious.
It's true.
Yeah, well, it is in your experience. But I think that's funny.
I
that
was just going to say,
girls
sorry,
need more action.
When I first showed my sister this game,
Mm-hmm.
I was doing mining, and now I've got an orca, and I've stopped mining and I've stopped going with the orca. But I've went more to the PvP side to get involved in the game to find out what it's about. And to be honest with you, looking at the PvP side when you're doing gate camping, you're thinking there is no difference here between the high sec and the low sec gate camping. You're learning in the high sec to smack the little guy coming along and stealing his freight and then getting the kill. I'm one of the world's worst players because when I was playing, trying to get parts to build up my little miner, etc., I'd go into low sec and get hammered and think, "What have I done wrong?" And nobody ever said to me, "That's low sec, don't go there." I know it sounds crazy, but Eve brings hidden secrets in this game. You've got to learn by your mistakes.
Yeah. Or research of other people's mistakes. The funny thing is, I had a workmate, and he likes video games, and he likes obscure video games, not the typical ones. And he goes, "Oh, EVE Online, I tried that," but he said as soon as he started playing it, he realized he was going to have to read a manual to understand it. And I thought, yeah, I think you will, but it wasn't for him. So he's like, and he didn't know what to do. And there's this other stuff too. But basically, that stuck with me. That I'm going to have to read to play this game. Like I can't just intuitively figure it out just by playing it. And for me, that was part of the fun. I loved university. I loved reading books and finding out about things. So that was part of the attraction, was to study, because that study could actually be important and could give you advantage, as opposed to just somebody who had a lot of time to play. This was more like going to school to understand how to play EVE Online. Totally appealed to me.
Sorry, can I just stop you just a second? Because
yeah, of course.
I'm coming into EVE very late in life because I used to be a corporate manager in an oil company, and I was a spreadsheet guru. But the spreadsheets only work if you're doing analysis for sales and you're doing your asset and inventory checking and see what you can do for selling. But EVE brought to me a mine management type thing, which kept my mind still fresh. I've been retired for 6 years and played 2 years ago and then stopped because my friends stopped, but I decided to come back. But I still see EVE as such a vast amount of things to put on board that nobody should really get too uptight about it. And some people just spit the dummy out at the earliest stage.
So here you're GereRobert. Who are you in the game?
I'm GereRobert's Arston. GereRobert's Arston.
GereRobert.
Yeah, they just call me Gero because it's Richard Gere and Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman. You see, I'm old school. I'm 55 and 56 this year.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of putting on the computer and sitting down to play EVE and doing a 2:30 morning run with the guys in the States when I'm GMT time, 2:30 and they're 8 o'clock at night. And the guys have said to me, says, "Well done for getting up to want to play. But I want to play, but I want to learn more about it." And if somebody says to me, "Why have you got a Loki?" I said, "Because I needed to learn to play and learn to train, and I didn't know what ship to get. So I bought a ship in an auction, and then I set that as my goal for training, to learn how to fly that." And I learned the hard way. I went in right in at the deep end, bought a ship, and then said, "Right, what do I do?" So I dug coal, if you like, until I got my training time up. So I've got a nightmare now, a Loki, and a lot more. But that's the point. The big guns, when you got to learn to play the game with a ship, and you've got to learn to play the game with the ship and the guns and the ammunition, and the knock-on effect's amazing. But we get too tied up in what's going on and all this political stuff. Eve has to look at the driving skills of the men and say,
Yep.
if you were bashing into somebody with a spaceship, how much damage would you do? And if the guy commits suicide to bring in another bunch of guys to gank the guy, and the police can't do anything, there has got to be some boundaries where you set rules to say, this is the police that comes in, so you can't shoot anybody, but you can hit them with your ship. That's got to be somewhere undermining somebody's civil liberties in space. That was a joke.
Sorry. I'm trying to do multiple things at the same time. I like that civil liberties thing, though. I want to go back to it. Tell us about yourself and where you play the game.
I play with a bunch of guys who are in... I can never pronounce the bloody thing. Let me get my details up. Oh, just a second.
Mm-hmm.
They are two things. They've got a team or a corporation set up in HiSec to bring guys back into the game to go to nullsec.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm part of the guys in the HiSec just now. Give me a second.
Oh, take your time.
Yeah, it's. I can never remember the bloody name of the thing. As I say, my mind's old. So, GereRobert's Da and GereRobert's son are my other two characters. One's a premium and one's an alpha. But the alpha will become omega eventually. But Southern...
How soon did you start this game? Like, when did you start?
I started 2 years ago when somebody said to me, have you tried Eve? And I said, no, what's Eve? They said, well, you go into space and you do different bits and pieces. And I went, yeah, okay, I'll try it. So I sat down with my laptop and went, boom. I went, what the fuck is this? And I got together with some guys and I've tried 3 different corporations because one corporation would get bored and want to be bought out by some other corporation to become bigger and go do different things. But moon mining had just come on the scene. So if you can count that back a couple of years.
Yep.
And I was digging for coal, if you like, and it didn't matter what the rocks were.
Digging for coal? So you were mining?
Moon rocks.
Yeah.
So growing up in a mining community, thinking about moon mining was easy. You would sit there for hours. But hearing you guys talk about something so passionately and the development of it so passionately, it makes a guy like me being a noob really get involved in it. And I may be talking out of turn, but I enjoy Eve with its little idiosyncrasies, like not having women in it. But until we can get the HiSec sorted out, that you can't just bash into somebody and then go gank them. Women won't play this game until they get involved in some speed and going and doing things fast, like driving cars, running through a range, shooting something, and not having to sit there waiting to hit somebody in HiSec, then gank them, and then somebody does it to them, and they sit there and go, oh yeah, I see what happens. This is boring. And they switch off and go do their hair and their nails.
Okay. Some, not all. But that's very interesting, the aspects that hooked you right away because you were a manager before. And you're definitely the demographic for Eve, people who are attracted to this sort of game. The complication, the investment that's required to grow something. And I think in a weird way, I know that CCP has put out this whole thing like, hey, Eve is good for you. It's good for your loneliness, but it's also good for your career. And that's really neat. It's a nice marketing push, and I think there's some truth to it. But I think there's another element that's interesting. I was just talking to somebody about this, that depression is hopelessness, and hope is the cure for depression to some degrees. I'm not being professional about this, but this is just something we were talking about. If you have something that makes you hopeful, that is something that can lure you out of the nothing matters depression that you might be in. So if And in order to get hope, hope means that you have a path to building something. And I think EVE Online for me and for other people, I think, is a space where you can build something. You can grow something, and you can dedicate yourself to do it. And that might help you with the feelings of I got nothing going for me, Even if it is a video game, it does have a social aspect to it that is a real social aspect to it, as well as a logistical aspect to it, that I'm using my brain to actually do a thing, which I think is just kind of like something that we naturally feed on. But anyway, that's what I was thinking. Man, it's nice to meet you, GereRoberts or GereRoberts.
Gero. Just call me Gero, mate. It's easier.
Gero, okay. There is 15 people in the channel now, and we're going to go ahead and finish up here. Everybody will jump into public after this and hang out. If you want to come hang out with us, you're always welcome to. That is Talking in Stations Discord. You can find it through talkinginstations.com. You have to prove you're not a bot, so don't be confused when you first find it. Once you're not a bot, lots of channels will open up to you. Caleb, do you got anything else before we take off?
Not really. I think that would just take us down into a rabbit hole, and we would be here for another hour, so that's not a good idea.
You're absolutely right, so we won't do that. Looking at who to invade, it looks like Extra Squishy because he's doing EVE Online. Ron's playing, but he's playing something else right now. Tarkov, which is actually very popular with EVE players. Tarkov is a team shooter, so that is not unlike EVE Online combat. Basically, team shooters. I like to think of EVE Online as, Counter-Strike. Where you have 30 on 30 people used to seem like a big deal, but when you get to EVE Online, you can have many more than 30 on 30. It starts at 30 on 30. So it's just kind of like a big Counter-Strike, or at least it was. Now it's become a little more, empire building focus, which is something that appeals to some players, but also paralyzes others, because building an empire, you don't want to be warring all the time. That's not how that works. You need rest times, you need building times, and that sort of stuff. All right. Thanks, everyone, for all the great text chats and stuff. I wish I could answer them all. I can't. I'll do a better job in the future. And I want to say we did not get yesterday. I said that we were going to have Penn on the show, and the show got delayed because the guest, it got delayed twice, and the second time it got delayed, the guest couldn't make it. So I do not know when that show will happen, but it is not happening. It didn't happen yesterday. So look for it, though. It'll come soon. Okay, everybody, thanks for coming. It's nice to meet you, Jero, and everybody else that's in this channel. We're going to jump out. Thanks. Prepare to raid Squishy right now. There we go. Good day, everyone. We will see you.
Bye-bye.
Monday.